Thomas Green here with Ethical Marketing Service. On the episode today, we have Amanda McKoy Flanagan. Amanda, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much. Well, thank you for having me.
It is very much my pleasure. Would you like to take a moment and tell the audience a bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. My name is Amanda McKoy Flanagan. I am an author, a motivational speaker, a podcaster. I co-host my own show called Soul Rising Podcast. I'm a blogger, if you will. I write a 400 to 500 word piece that goes up on my website about once a month. And I do it all. I do it all. My mission is to spread my healing message as far and wide as I can. I'm very grateful to be talking to you on the other side of the pond today. I'm in the United States. I'm in the States. I live in Colorado. I'm originally from New York. Spent the first 35 years of my life there. Decided we wanted to move off the coast, and Colorado was just a natural place for us to go with the mountains and just how beautiful and spiritual it is here. I just published a book, well, not just, back in May in 2023, and it's called Trust Yourself to Be All In, Safe to Love and Let Go. And it's an inspirational memoir / personal development or self-help book. It kind of straddles a few genres because it's not straight self-help. It's not like bullet points. And I do throw in some questions. It's more narrative, and it's more to get you to think about how you view your own pain, grief, trauma, etc. And I suggest some tools that have worked for me through my telling you my story. The book is not like, I have your answers, do this, right? Typical self-help is like, okay, you want to feel this way, you want to get out of this pain, do this, this, and that. I don't ever pretend to know what's best for you. I can just tell you my own story. I'm also sober. I've been on a sober spiritual journey since 2006. I am the co-founder of the Castle Rock Clubhouse. I live in Castle Rock, Colorado. And that is a space that, it's a location that rents space to 12-step groups. So I'm involved in 12-step recovery. Like I said, got sober, I think I said in 2006. So I've been doing this for a little while. So I've been on a self-discovery, self-reflecting journey for quite a while. And I don't know if that's enough. That's, sums it up.
There was a lot to talk to you about there, and thank you for the introduction. One of the things I think we discussed before the episode in our messages is your story. So I think you got quite a compelling story, and I think you covered that. It's partially in your book, is that right?
Yes. So my story in my book is not my entire life story. That's why it's different from an autobiography. Memoirs are kind of like snippets of a certain period of your life. And so mine sort of starts when I got sober. And I talk about the different traumatic loss that I experienced. I do touch on a bit of childhood trauma. That's not really the focus. I talk about a sexual trauma that happened when I was 5, another one when I was 7, and things that happened in my family of origin. My father cheating on my mother when I was about 16. My mother had breast cancer at the time, and he cheated on her with her best friend. And he eventually left 5 years later. And so I kind of touch on those pieces of my story. It's not the focus, but it's sort of to let you know that I've been through it, and that it kind of substantiates, I guess, not that anybody has to ever substantiate their pain, but it shows you why I turned to drugs and alcohol, why I suffer with trauma, why I have a very hard time trusting people. And that the book is called Trust Yourself to Be All In. And so through my experience, I tried to tell about those experiences kind of legitimize my psychology, and why I, eventually, where the story goes is my marriage starts to crumble after, it started before my brother died. My brother overdosed over 5 years ago. It'll be 6 years this March. And he died. And at that point, I decided I didn't love my husband. I had an experience at a concert. I had a spiritual experience that involved another person, and it was never about the other person. That was more of a spiritual awakening, right? That's like why this, I believe souls and spirits come together to teach us lessons and to wake us up. And that was the purpose of that. But at the time, I really believed that I did not love my husband. I came home from that concert and I told him, I mean, it had been years of being unhappy. He suffers from PTSD. He's a 9/11 first responder. He was a fireman and a transit police officer in the New York City subways. He did the transit work when he was about 19, 20, 21, back in the late 80s when the New York City subway system was just terrible, just criminals, just bad news. So the trauma for him started there, and then being a fireman for a while, and then 9/11 kind of sealed the deal for him with his PTSD, and that started to come out in our relationship about 4 years before everything blew up. I kept asking to go to marriage counseling. I kept expressing my concerns, and I was sort of the identified problem in the relationship, if you could say that, with my family history and my own trauma, and then my brother dies, and I tried to again go to counseling, and he just wasn't willing at that point. He'd only addressed and admitted his PTSD in 2016. 9/11 was 2001, right? So he's living 15 years with all this pain, and starts to affect my children. I start to be resentful towards him because I see how, my daughter spills a glass of water and it's, I'm sorry, so she's starting to get that sort of secondary trauma from just his reaction and my reaction too. I'm not innocent here. I had a ton of anxiety. I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder. And both, we've kind of fed off of each other in that way. It was not very healthy. Anyway, Jeremy dies. And at this point, I'm talking divorce. So that got him into the hot seat in therapy. And I was surprised to hear that it wasn't all me, that it wasn't just my issues, that I wasn't the only problem. It takes two people, takes two to tango, if you will. And he had to do his work. I had to do my work. And then we did our work together. So we spent a lot of time and money on therapy. He did some EMDR work to address his trauma. And after that, he did that for about a year. It didn't work great. It worked okay for him, but it wasn't enough. And then he did something called rapid resolution therapy, which is a form of hypnotherapy. And it's not, and I want to bring that up because it's sort of new, sort of like burgeoning, like on the trauma treatment, in that world. And I think the word hypnotherapy kind of, throws people off. It's not that you're getting sleepy therapy. You're 100% conscious. It's a deep meditation that rewires your neural pathways. And it's called rapid resolution therapy. It happened for him in 3 sessions, and he is a changed man. And I thank him all the time for doing his work, because if he had not done his work, we would not still be married. So the story in my book really dives into, like I said, like this inability from a very young age to trust that people are going to be there for me. I suffered some emotional abandonment. I talk about that in the book, not just from my father, but also, from my mother. Both, there was a feeling of distrust that, my feelings weren't very validated, and when I talk about all of this stuff, and I am very clear in my book, nobody's to blame. Nobody's at fault. It's the way things were. My parents did what their parents did. We live in a time, you look about my age, we live in a time of, call it the evolution of consciousness, and other people are calling it that too, where we're waking up and we're questioning things. And we're seeing the effects of family trauma, generational family dysfunction, coming out, tragically, in drug addiction, in suicide, which very often goes back to mental illness, is sort of the underbelly of all of that. And we're saying no more. We're saying we're going to do it differently, because We have access to more information. We are encouraged to heal. We are encouraged to seek therapy. Where back in the day, it was like, you're crazy, if you go to therapy, like you're a wacko, you're going to go see the, whatever the derogatory term for the therapist was. I can't even think of it right now, but,
Shrink.
and yeah, shrink. Yeah. Or there's another one too, but yeah. So like, you were judged, and we live in a time where we have a lot more compassion, I believe, for people. And we just have a greater understanding of the effects of trauma and the effects of how things were. And we're kind of not standing for it anymore. And it's creating a lot of upheaval. So and I believe that's what's going on out in the world. So the book essentially is not just, here is my story, and I hope it helps you. That's of course one part of it. But the overarching message of my book is that healing our personal pain and our energy can help heal the collective. Because I believe, right, if anybody's, I'm sure you've heard of the law of attraction and all that. We've been talking about these spiritual principles forever. What's going on in there is a reverberation of what's going on in here. Just like, if I want to put positive thoughts out, then I want to attract positivity in my life. If I'm putting negativity out, if I'm putting unhealed energy and pain out in the world, what are we all going to get back? We're going to get that pain. And we're manufacturing that on a mass scale, as evidenced by all the war, by all the pain and the suffering out there. So my book is sort of a guide, or a pathway, if you will, to heal your own pain, so then we can go out in the world and shed light and shed love and be compassionate and practice forgiveness. Because I just believe that the chaos in here is why there's chaos out there. So I try to use my own personal story and experience to guide you towards that, if that's something that people are interested in. And I think a lot of people are.
I agree. And thank you for the answer. There is a lot to follow up on. So I'll do it. I'll attempt to do it in order, if that's okay.
You
You
can always feel
mentioned
free. Feel free to jump in and stop me whenever you do, because I'm a long talker, so I apologize.
no, that's just fine for a podcast episode. You're no problem there. You mentioned trauma at a young age and the effects that that had. I'm very sorry that you had to go through that, but from the perspective of helping others, you have perhaps expertise in recovering from that. So if someone is in that position that you were in, they're carrying it with them in their everyday life. How would you, or what advice would you give them?
One of my main go-tos is self-compassion and self-forgiveness. And before you can do that, you have to get honest. You have to get very, very honest with yourself about your pain, and understand that it's just pain and it's not going to kill you. Actually, avoiding looking at your pain and diving deep and getting very honest will, in fact, kill you. It will come out sideways, like we talked about in the drug addiction and the mental illness, everything else, your relationships that are going to suffer, that's going to cause you more pain. So getting very honest, becoming very aware, and you do this through, my go-to is meditation. I try to open myself up as much as I possibly can on any given day. Some days I'm more open than others. And I seek some sort of wisdom from what I call high guides or master guides, or whatever you want to call it. I do believe in God, but God to me, it's not a religious God at all. I'm a spiritual person. You can call it whatever you want, he, she, it, they. It's just a loving energy to me that I believe is surrounding and is in the whole planet, and shows up in every different religion. Just different religions tend to interpret what that means differently, but ultimately to me it doesn't matter. It's all the same. It's just one loving energy. So I try to tap into that, and then just be brave, ask for courage, to just be as honest with myself as I possibly can, to see what shows up. And when things show up or memories come back, or I get a glimpse of an understanding of where the pain is coming from, the root of it, hold on to it. And I try not to push it away. We're very good, especially people who suffer trauma, at denial, at our defense mechanisms, because we needed them to survive as children. And they served us very well up until adulthood, when those survival traits no longer serve us. But when I talk about self-compassion, I want to honor everything that comes up as a part of me and not push anything away. In my book, I talk about it as like a field of flowers and weeds. And I talk about prickly and thorny ones, and soft and beautiful and fragrant and velvety, and, all the good ones, and the, bad. I do air quotes because I don't believe that there's anything bad. I think it's all there to serve us in some way. It's how we use that. But I try to embrace, I try to allow all of these things to become a part of me. And the things that I don't love about myself that I'd like to change, which is keeping me stuck in the pain and the trauma. I of course want to change on some level, but I don't want to necessarily rip things out by the root, right? We're very, very focused on change and changing ourselves and personal development and how we can be better and what's wrong with us. There's nothing wrong with you. Every part of you is serving a purpose. It's just a matter of identifying how it can now serve you instead of hurt you, right? Like for example, I talk about like hypervigilance, right? That's a key symptom of trauma. And because I need to know what's going on all around me all the time. And I used to call that being very conscious of what is going on around me, that I'm observant, right? I would call it observant. And I thought that was a great attribute. And it is. So, but it's how I use that. Now today, I use that more for connection. I use that more for a spiritual enlightenment, if you will, kind of like tapping into other people's energy, in a way that I can be helpful, or that I can not have to change or fix anybody, but be with them in it, right? So I'm no longer looking for ways that I need to stay safe through my hypervigilance. I'm now looking for ways that I can connect and bridge that connection, because ultimately that's what all my work comes down to. So I need to do that personally, with one-on-one with different people going on in my environment, in my atmosphere. And I believe that if I can do that on like a micro level, if we can all do that, it's going to heal our own souls and our own spirit, because we're going to be living in love and selflessness and compassion, and seeking that connection, which is, I believe, the heart of the problem in the world today. So meditate, get as honest as you can, and go in. There's a book, a yoga book, by Dana Fouts. It's called Go In and In. And it's go further. When you think you can't go any further, even when the tears are streaming, go further, go a little bit, right? And then stop, and then take a breather, right? Self-compassion, like I said, back out a little bit, take a break, have a cup of tea, relax, go do something that you like to do, take care of yourself, but make sure you get back to it, right? You don't have to heal yourself overnight, but make sure that you're willing to go back to it.
Thank you for that. I do think it's beneficial. And the next part that I wanted to follow up on was you talked about your dad's behavior, and then ultimately the divorce. I think that adult children of divorced parents, I think that they give that meaning, whether consciously or unconsciously. And I was wondering if you gave that meaning yourself, and then also what advice you'd give to others about people who carry that around with them later on in life.
You're 100% correct. I believe, there's a phrase, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And what that means is we recreate the same behavior that we see growing up. And unless you're completely conscious of it and saying, no, I'm going to do it differently, it seeps in, right? The stuff that we go through, especially probably from birth to about 12 years old, is just so imprinted on us on a cellular level that we recreate it unconsciously later in life. Like when I described that I had met this other person. That is a generational experience. My grandfather, my father, me, like that. I didn't go as far as them at all. More, mine was like a feeling that like freaked me out, that scared me to the point of like, wait a minute, no, like there's something more here. There's something going on underneath this. But we do unconsciously recreate the same behavior. And I believe the reason why it showed up for me was to break these chains of the generational dysfunction. My ears are kind of ringing. That's usually my sign that I'm onto something. And I had done that 12 years of self-reflection before that. So I knew, digging in recovery and stuff like that, I knew that there was something under the surface. But we do carry those experiences into our adult interactions. There's a program called Adult Children of Alcoholics and Dysfunctional Families. And, they talk about it in that program, how they call adult children, that we function as children in our adult lives based on the experiences that we had as children. So I think unless you're extremely aware, and not even in the infidelity part, I mean, that's part of it, but just so many behaviors, right? Like, I don't like that about my dad, or I didn't like that about my mom, and I'm never going to be like that. And then we become that. I believe I don't know the scientific word for it. I haven't done the actual, research on it. I probably learned about it at some point in my, I always forget to say, I'm also a licensed master of social work. So I've learned about it somewhere in the course of my studies. I don't practice it, which is why I don't think it comes to the top of my mind, for other reasons. Maybe someday I will, but I have stayed up on my continuing education and my license is valid. And I'm sure I learned that there is some actual, name for that. But to me, it doesn't really matter. I don't ever get really scientific or researchy or have to throw out like, names. I talk more from experience. But yeah, it's just those qualities, those attributes in us that we swear we're never going to be and we're never going to do. And then we do it. And I think it's all part of the soul's journey toward awakening. I feel that I have to go into some sort of pain and discomfort or act in ways that I'm not proud of in order to see it and say, no, I don't like that about me, or that's, I believe pain is our greatest teacher. And if I'm not going to see it and be aware of it, then I'm not going to be able to change it. So I think it all serves us. I think I picked my parents. I believe in reincarnation. I believe that, everything was exactly the way it was supposed to be, even the sexual traumas, even the terrible things. For me personally, I believe everything was exactly the way it was supposed to be in order to bring me to great healing, which is all our souls want to do, is heal.
Well, you also mentioned your brother's death, which I'm very sorry about. But again, it comes back to you having expertise that you can help other people with. So if someone is also in that position, they've lost a loved one, what would you advise that they do?
I could sit here and say, Jeremy should be here. He shouldn't be dead. It's unfair, blah, blah, blah. What I get like immediately, what I feel is like, who are you to say that? Who are you to say that what's in the best interest of a person's evolution of their soul? Perhaps Jeremy needs to be there in order to then do his review and all that I believe goes on in the afterlife, to say, you know what, I'm going to come back the next time and I'm going to change this, and that, right? It's all a continuum. Like I said, I believe in reincarnation. I believe that when our soul crosses over, we're only gone physically. We are still alive as energy. And I believe that there is an opportunity to then say, okay, yeah, I did this and this. And this is what, I said, we used to call them soul contracts. I said I was going to do this and this, and I did that, but I didn't do this, and that. So maybe in the next life, I'm going to work on that. I'm going to look at that. I'm going to do that a little bit differently. So I just believe, I just trust the process, that everything is the way that it's supposed to be. Maybe it's not, maybe it's just something I tell myself to feel better about it. but it's a really great way for me to cope with, feelings of it's not fair, or my survivor's guilt. I suffered from survivor's guilt. I'm sober 17 years. Why is Jeremy gone and I'm here? I'm his little sister, right? And I was sober for 12 years before he died, and I would try to help him, and I would try to, get him into recovery, and he would dabble with it here and there. He had stints of sobriety, a year here, 2 years there. But so it leaves me with the feeling of why me and not him? And when I ask him this, because I do believe that I have a very clear connection and line to him, he says, because you can do what I couldn't. Not getting sober, but now in life, writing and speaking and trying to heal others. For whatever reason, that's what I was put to do here. So my path led me to a spiritual experience and a spiritual journey, which then helps me to try and heal others or help others to heal. And it just wasn't his path. So now I believe he uses me. I believe my whole issue, my whole spiritual awakening around my marriage, breaking the generational dysfunction. I believe that when I tap into his spirit and I really listen and I try to discern what's me and what's him, or what's God, what's spirit, whatever, when I get those messages, I trust them, and I listen to it, and I say, okay, what do you want me to do? I'll do it. I've said that to him numerous times. Just tell me what you want me to do and I'll do it. So I try to use my loved ones on the other side to, I ask them to use me. Ask your loved ones to use you as a vessel, as a vehicle for healing and for goodness in the world, because the other side is just all abundant love and light and joy and peace. So if I can try to get a little bit of that, steal a little bit of that, from heaven, and then put it out on earth. My daughters were listening to that Belinda Carlisle song, heaven is a place on earth. I loved that when I was a kid. And I really believe that it can be, if I'm courageous enough and take the risks. It comes with a lot of risk taking and putting yourself out there and being vulnerable. So use the people on the other side to help you.
Thank you for that. In your answer, you did mention the sobriety and the addiction. If someone is hoping or trying to get sober, what would you tell them?
I'm a big proponent in the 12-step process. I would tell them, if they are willing to go down that path, that it is not a religious program. It gets a very bad rap from religious people in the program. I get really cringy when I'm sitting in a meeting and people start talking about Jesus and they start quoting Bible scripture. And it really, really bothers me, because it scares newcomers away and it scares people off who could use this life-saving process. That's all the 12 steps are. It's a process to develop a personal relationship with a higher power, whatever you want that higher power to be. In the beginning, for me, it was the ocean. I lived on the shore. I would look at the moon on the, glimmering on the water, and the sun and the birds, and it was nature. And it still is very much so. But it has grown somewhat. But be open. And if you go to a meeting and you don't like what you hear, try another one. It's not the program, it's the people in that particular meeting that you're in. So the bottom line is, you want to get to the heart of your pain. That's the bottom line. No matter what program you seek out, it's the willingness to discover why you might feel unlovable, or why you might feel unworthy or unwanted, which makes you want to escape those feelings. Just investigate and find and think about what really resonates with you, and know that there is a solution. There is a solution. If you truly want out of your pain, it's gonna, like I said, it's gonna, require a lot of courage and a lot of risk to feel things you're not gonna want to feel. But it's not an everyday struggle. This is, I see a lot of this stuff on social media about how hard it is every day. It's so hard. It shouldn't be. if you're in sobriety, or you want to get sober, and you're afraid that it's going to be this constant struggle, or you're in sobriety and it's still a constant struggle, something's amiss. Something has not, there is either a lack of surrender, or there is a lack of belief in your support group helping you, or your higher power. I believe I'm beyond human aid. I believe no person can get me sober. I believe only a higher power can do that for me, my higher self. I like that concept too. I'm not all about like, I say in my book, so God or spirit, whatever you want to call it, is the director, and we are co-producers. So it's not like I'm just taking myself and just throwing myself out the window and that's it, and God's going to just do everything for me. No, I have to align my will. I have to use my mental faculties, my emotional nature, everything that my humanness. I have to use that in conjunction, sort of like, this is my will, this is my higher power's will, and I have to kind of get them to go along, which is just self-love and self-worth and believing that I deserve good things in life. That's really the ultimate, answer for me. That's when I'm on a, and I could be not drinking and still be like unsober. Just because I'm not putting alcohol in my body doesn't mean that I'm sober. Sober behavior for me is practicing the self-care. It's being willing to, I call it my meditation cave. I have this little room where I meditate. Get in the cave and do what I got to do and do my writing. It's that willingness. If I'm not feeling that, something is off spiritually. And typically then my behaviors start to suffer, and I start to place myself in situations which ultimately come back to hurt me. That's really my spiritual malady, that I unconsciously set up things in my life that are going to harm me or hinder me, not just physically, but in many relationship wise or whatever. Yeah.
Well, thank you for the answer. There's one more thing that I wanted to follow up on from your introduction, and it was around the marriage counseling and how you felt that you were both unhappy, or perhaps one of you were unhappy. And the question is around if I think quite a few people are in long-term relationship or a marriage where they're, should we say, dissatisfied. If you came across someone who actually wanted some advice, and they look to you as someone who's, should we say, been through it and gotten to a better place, what would you say?
Every relationship that you're in, every partnership, whether it be a marriage, whether it be a friendship, whether it be a parent-child, whatever it is, a boss, whatever it is you are drawing that into your life for a reason, for healing. So your partner, specifically in a marriage, to answer your question, is the perfect person for you to get that self-reflection of what needs to be healed in you. You are unsatisfied because they're either just not doing something that you want them to do, they're not feeling some kind of need for you. The purpose of the counseling and what she helped us to see, and then we did something else called imago theory, which is therapy, which is kind of like the same thing I'm going to describe. She said she was doing some of that with us in counseling when we brought it up to her, but it's the idea that whatever I see in my partner that is unpleasant or is causing me some pain is an indicator of something within me that needs to change. So for instance, I struggled with emotional intimacy for a very, very long time due to my experiences growing up, right? And what that comes down to, and I didn't touch on this before, and it's very important, and I should touch on it. My marriage troubles stem from a fear of loss. My husband being sick, my husband being 12 and a half years older than me. When my brother died, my brain said, Jim, that's his name, Jim is next. And we're never going to let you feel that pain again. That laying in bed for 3 months, crying, not being able to take care of your kids, your children's survival was threatened. You're never going to go there again. So let's just grieve Jim now. Let's just lose him now so that you can get it all over with, right? That's what my sick brain told me. So when we go to counseling and we do this work and we realize and identify, a counselor told me back in 2009, also a therapist in New York, that I had a fear of emotional intimacy. But she was talking about friends. We were talking about like making new friends and yada yada. And she said, I keep chasing emotionally unavailable people. But I couldn't really understand it. I wasn't ready for it at the time. But then again, now we're in 2018. This is 9 years later, and this emotional intimacy thing comes up again. And when my husband says to me, you know, I need that from you. I need you to be more vulnerable, or I need you to hold my hand, or, you know, emotional intimacy is not physical, but that's part of it. The simple act of holding a hand is a very intimate experience, especially for somebody who suffered sexual trauma, any sort of touch, you know? So it's more just about sharing and being vulnerable and letting him know my fears, or feeling safe to open up to him. You know, based on previous responses I had gotten in other relationships or from my parents, I didn't feel safe doing that. So when he says to me, I need you to work on that, are you willing to work on that? My initial response is, I don't know how to do that. I can't do that, right? And if I stay there and I can't do that, guess what's going to happen? We're going to get divorced, because eventually he's going to say, you're not meeting my needs and I need to find somebody who can. But by me saying, you know what? Yes, I'm willing to do that for the sake of our family, for the sake of our relationship. Not only do I do it to serve and to heal that, ultimately I'm healing myself, because I'm healing the part of me that fears emotional intimacy. So the relationships that you're in that you think are not right, or I picked the wrong person, or they're not capable of giving me this, if you do this work, it's all about doing the work. I can't sit around and wish for things to get better. Yeah, I believe in prayer, but like prayer followed up by action. Prayer only works when I get the message and then I say, okay, guide me, direct me. Who am I supposed to talk to? What am I supposed to listen to? Show me where to learn, how I can learn to take the action that's going to bring the healing, right? So your relationships are your greatest teacher. Not everybody's supposed to stay together. Let me make that perfectly clear. And if both parties are not willing to do the work, it's not going to work. You're pretty much wasting your time. But if you are willing, like we go to therapy and she tells us in like the first or second session, I heard, she didn't tell me anything. I heard, I'm going to help you save your marriage. That's what I heard. And when I went back the second time and I said, I don't care what you say, you're not going to make me stay married. She said to me, because at that point, I was dead set on this. She said to me, Amanda, it's not my job to make you stay together. It's my job to help you heal yourself so that you don't bring this into the next relationship, whether you stay together or not. That's what this work is about. It's not about saving your marriage necessarily. That's a good benefit. That's a great benefit if that happens, you know, but ultimately it's so that you heal and then you can bring a better version of yourself into your next relationship and stop recreating. It's all about this emotional abandonment stuff. Stop recreating this stuff in every relationship, in friendships, in work relationships, right? If you heal the core things, you probably have 2 or 3. I feel like every person probably has about 2 or 3 main issues, which really come down to fear. You heal those things, I believe everything else in your life is going to get better, because you're manifesting these difficult relationships due to something going on within you. So it's not them. It's not them. It's you. Right? That whole, it's not you, it's me. It's actually true.
Well, it's a great answer, and I think there's a lot there, and it's also a principle I would add, which is it's essentially taking responsibility or being accountable for what you can control. So you said it in a, I would say, more profound way, but it's also a principle that I like as well. So I've asked you a lot of, shall we say, deep questions about some of the stories in your book. The next one is just about, if someone were to read it, what would you like them to take away from it, other than the things that we've talked about today?
I would like them to take away a sense of comfort and a sense of hope and a self-acceptance that you are exactly who you are supposed to be. There is nothing bad or wrong about you. It's how you choose to use the experiences in your life, how you choose to use your own characteristics and attributes. Um, it's a difficult question because I don't, like I said, like I don't try to drive home any, take this and do this and you're going to get better. It's more very open. Like people have said, it's a very conversational, they've said, like I've managed to write it in a way that it feels like we're having a conversation and there's no, this is what you need to do. It's meant to make you inquisitive. It's meant to open you up to investigating and exploring why you are the way you are. And to just sort of, I wanted to ruminate with people long after they read it. I've had a lot of people say they highlight a whole bunch of stuff. They go back, because again, it's not just my story. I talk about how to be in these difficult relationships in life. I have a couple of different principles that I use in there. So about, I call it compassion and forgiveness and esteemable boundaries. And I kind of some newer, not 100% popular things that we hear today. It's a challenge. I kind of challenge people to be as loving and compassionate and kind as they possibly can through a deep sense of self-worth and self-love. Because that, I guess, is the answer. Sorry, it took me a while to get there. When I want people to walk away with a profound sense of self-love and self-worth, that you are good and that you have a purpose and that you have a mission and that you are here for a reason and that you can help heal the world. And when you feel that, you are less likely to encounter all these difficulties in your life because you're no longer coming from a place of sort of self-centered fear and of emotional selfishness, where everything's about me. Everything everybody says is about me. And I'm offended and I'm hurt. When I have this deep sense of self-worth and self-love, the things you do and say, I know are not about me because I know I'm all right. So yeah, I can look at myself. Of course, I talk a lot about self-reflection. I entertain it. Somebody says something that I'm doing or whatever, I have to look at it and say, is that true? Because ultimately that's going to help me grow. But if it's not, it's like, okay, all right, take what you need, leave the rest. Okay. Some of it's true, some of it's not, but I'm not taking everything in and on as an indictment of my character because I'm in this place of self-love and self-worth and truth so that I can be out in the world thinking about myself less and thinking more about you. So that's what I want people to do.
It's a great message.
Thank you.
Thank you. And do you have a favorite chapter?
Maybe All of Me. I think it's chapter 10 or 11. And that's when I talk about that the field of flowers and I call it lovely and unlovely parts of myself, and kind of harnessing all of that, bringing all of that together as my power, as my superpower, as all those parts of me are in me to serve the world and myself in the greatest way possible. I guess that's it. And allow, I like the last chapter. The last chapter is called Allow, and that's about just allowing the flow. That's my word for 2024, flow. Just allowing the flow of love and goodness and good vibes and all that kind of stuff. Just allow it to come, and allow even the stuff that you don't want to really see. Allow it all, trusting yourself. That's why it's called Trust Yourself to be all in. It's not all in with others. It's all in with you. Trusting that you're going to show up in whatever's thrown your way, right? The healing that I've done in this book, and this is a great kind of end to this call, is, if you're looking to end it, is this idea of when I can really sit in who I am and trust and in my emotions and find comfort in all of my emotions, good, bad, indifferent, ugly, scary, frustrating, happy, whatever it is. If I know that I have this deep sense of self-worth and self-love, I know that I'm going to show up in whatever's coming down the pike. So say my husband does die early. He's sick right now. He's been sick for 3 weeks. He's sick. He's chronically ill. So I know that, and don't get me wrong, I definitely go into fear. I was talking to my friends the other night, I was crying, like it's not like doing this work and solves all of my problems and I don't feel any pain. No, but I can be in it. I can be in whatever fear. I can trust myself that, yeah, if Jim passes, before his time, I will end up as a puddle on the floor, but I'll get back up because I've always gotten back up. And I know the people to get help from, and I trust in my spirit to be resilient. So that's what allow is about, that chapter. That chapter is about just allowing whatever's going to come to you, let it come to you, let it flow through you, trusting yourself to show up for yourself.
Sounds powerful. So if people want to buy the book or follow you, where do they go?
So I'm on Instagram at Amanda McKoy Flanagan, and that's McKoy with a K. And the book is available on Amazon. You can also get to, I always say all roads lead to Amazon. That's like my new saying. You can go on my website too. There's a book trailer that's pretty neat. It's about a minute long on my website. If you want to learn more about it and get sort of a feel of the book, that's also at amandamckoyflanagan.com. So it's all my name. Just put my name in and you'll find it.
Is there anything I should have asked you about today?
No, I think you really covered it all. Thank you so much for your excellent questions. No, I think
It's my pleasure.
Yeah,
Do you have any closing thoughts for us today?
I feel like I pretty much covered it all. Just trust yourself to be all in. Just know that you have everything inside of you to show up in the joy and in the pain, that you're gonna be okay. You're gonna be okay if you're just willing to keep digging and keep loving. Really, just be love, please. Just be love out there in the world. There's a meme sometimes I post, and it's just be nice. Just be nice to one another. Just let's love each other a little bit more. People aren't out to get you. They're living in their own fear. It's coming out sideways. So try to love yourself and others as best as you can.
A good message. And Amanda, thank you for being a great guest today.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it, Thomas.
The Tom Screen podcast is owned and made possible by Ethical Marketing Service. If your business is struggling with Google or Facebook ads, maybe you're frustrated figuring it out, or there's a performance issue, Ethical Marketing Service has worked on hundreds of accounts and we can help in this area. If you would like to find out if we can help, it's a free, no salesy consultation call, and the link is in the description.